Welcome to All the Fanfare. My name is Eric Pierce. I'm back again after roughly a month's hiatus, a little bit of a break, unintentional break. But I'm glad to be back here with you again. Today we're talking about The Penguin, the new show on HBO. I'm loving it. It's some of the best TV I've ever seen. This is going to be a spoiler-ish discussion. I've only seen, so there's 4 episodes out so far. I've only seen the first 2. I haven't watched the last 2 episodes just yet. So we're going to touch on plot points from the first 2 episodes in this discussion. I won't beat them up too bad, but I do, just want to make you aware up front that we are going to be delving into spoilery waters here. Just to remind you real quick off the top before we get into it, check out allthefanfare.com for all of your pop culture needs, long form articles, obviously the podcast. I also have a newsletter out there. And we try and keep things fun. We keep things light, so I'm sure you'll find something you like out there. If you like Star Wars, I definitely got you covered, but also things like Point Break, Predator, Marvel stuff. Now that I'm trying to do a list off the top of my head, I'm struggling a little bit, but I cover the bases, Dungeons and Dragons, gaming, cover a lot of stuff. If you're into kind of mainstream, I want to call it franchise stuff, but yeah, franchise stuff everyone's heard of. I have a take on it. It's out there, and you check it out. You can support the pod for $3 a month, and you get access to several dozen, I want to say there's maybe 50 long form articles out there that are exclusive to paid subscribers. So check that out. So The Penguin is the origin story of the infamous Batman supervillain of the same name. And the guy with in every other iteration of this character, it's been the guy with kind of the weird bird fetish, who has a thing for umbrellas and purple and kind of waddles, kind of quacks even. Bit jokey character of all the Batman supervillains, the Penguins in terms of jokiness, he's definitely up there. And this show exists basically to show the origin of how a man becomes the Penguin. What does that metamorphosis look like? And I'm happy to report that at least so far, the writing and direction of this show is so well done. It's so subtle that you almost forget that this character is based on a comic book, that every other iteration of him has been a joke, because there's nothing funny about the show. This show is funny at points, but there's really nothing funny about there's not a winking kind of way that they're approaching this adaptation. Everything is very straightforward, it's very serious, and it's very realistic. This is probably the most realistic comic book adaptation I've ever seen. I've seen quite a bit of them. I've seen a lot of them. It's not hard to trace a line from downtrodden and misunderstood to maniacal madman, and that's a road many other productions have taken when it comes to showing how does someone break bad? What makes a seemingly normal person become a madman, a supervillain, a villain of any kind? The Penguin, the TV show The Penguin, isn't the first show to attempt this trick. And in fact, this is actually the second show to do this with the same character. You may remember roughly 10 years ago, there was a TV show called Gotham. I believe it was on Fox. That showed how a character named Oswald Cobblepot became the Penguin. Now, it's definitely an apples and orange comparison, because in Gotham, in the TV show Gotham, Oswald he's a Joker facsimile. He's played by a budget Crispin Glover, and he just kind of stands there grinning like an idiot, cackling, and there's really nothing to the character. He's there to just be the Penguin. He's the Penguin Junior, and then the show shows him becoming the Penguin, and it's yeah. I mean, I enjoyed Gotham for a little while, but frankly, it was not very good, and it's because they didn't treat the character as a person. They didn't humanize Oswald at all. And the Penguin, in contrast, is humanizing this character, Oswald Cobb. He's a deeply flawed human being, but he's definitely a human being. He's not a caricature. He's not a paper cutout, a cardboard cutout of a character. This is a three-dimensional character, three-dimensional person, and you feel he invites empathy. You feel sympathetic towards this character, even though when the story starts, it continues from the Batman movie from 2022. His character shows up in that movie, and so we get a glimpse from there. But here, this show picks up with him. He's already about that crime life. He's a low level, I say mid level, kind of thug gangster in the Falcone crime family, and he's criminal scum. But at the same time, he is a person, and you get to see his humanity. It shines through. He's not just what he does. It's who he is. You never forget that Oswald he's a criminal. He's a murderer. He's definitely a murderer. And in fact, there's a scene in the second episode where he kills someone in a brutal and bloody fashion. And it feels a bit surprising. It almost feels like it comes out of left field because up to that point, the show has done such a good job of getting you on his side, of seeing things from his perspective, and you've just been chumming along. It just feels like you're just going on this ride with this kind of quirky, eccentric character, and he seems almost harmless. I mean, to the point where he goes home to check, quote unquote, check on his mom, but really he's trying to get her out of the city because he's messed up and he feels like they need to go on the run. And his mom asks him if he's going to be a pussy boy, and which is, you kind of get to see, okay, well, how did this character get on this path, on this trajectory? But that also makes him feel kind of harmless because he's being shamed by his mother, by this, she's in her 60s or something, and she's just busting his chops about this. Like, are you going to go run and hide? Or are you going to do something about it? So, but all this, everything up to this murder in this second episode really has made you empathize with and sympathize with this character, and you come to really love him. So when he does take his knife out and just kills this guy in cold blood, and it's brutal, it's visceral, it's kind of sobering. It makes you realize that, okay, I like this guy, but he's actually still a really bad guy. He's not someone you'd want to like know personally. He's not a good guy in any stretch of the imagination. It just so happens that the writing in this show and the acting, the direction is so good that he wins your sympathy. You want to be on his side because he's funny and he's strangely charming, and it's an interesting dichotomy. And I think part of the reason, at least initially, part of the reason we like Oswald so much, it has to be because of his appearance, his physical impediment. He looks kind of slovenly. He has the waddle from which his moniker comes from, his really busted up foot. I assume he has a club foot. In episode 1 he takes his shoe and his sock off, and that foot is all twisted and nasty. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if that's what a club foot actually looks like, but if it is a club foot, it's like the worst club foot ever. It kind of looks like he had a club foot and then someone broke his toes on top of that, because it's a mangled mess of a foot. And it's kind of interesting too, because we get these glimpses of Oswald's past, specifically when he goes to visit his mom. There's these pictures on the wall that shows him and his brothers, and also he refers to his brothers multiple times, and it seems like he has had a kind of happy childhood, and certainly in the photos they look like normal happy kids. And so you wonder, did something happen to him physically that messed up the foot or something? Because the vibe I got just from all of that was that, there were things were good, and then both of his brothers die through means we don't know yet, and maybe will not know. And additionally, the foot. So, like, did something happen where his brothers died and his foot got really messed up? I don't know, but it's the kind of thing I was wondering as you're watching the show, and I do appreciate that the show doesn't give you answers. It just makes you wonder about things, and it's just moving on, because the show isn't really about Oswald and his brothers. It's not really about Oswald and his mother. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but it's really just about who he is in this moment and the things that are happening now. And that's just, why this show is so part of why this show is so good. So anyway, I think a lot of the reason Oswald gets our sympathy is because of his appearance and specifically because of the way the world looks down on him due to his appearance. He even says in the first episode, "I'm an acquired taste," and he understands that no one's lining up to be this guy's friend, and he's uh he's the kind of guy that knows everybody but doesn't really have any friends. He someone you kind of would tolerate, maybe, like, just you've probably had people in your life before who through circumstance or whatever, fate, they end up in your life. They're your neighbor. You work with them. You don't really like them. You kind of tolerate them because you have to. Oswald kind of has that vibe where he's kind of rough around the edges, and we like him because we get to spend time with him and we get to see him when his guard's down. And again, we kind of get the whole underdog aspect and the fact that he's trying to swim upriver and he's trying to live in this world of crime families. So the the Falcone crime family lives upstate New York in this palatial mansion, and they've got butlers and things, and he's just a mid-level gangster. And how could you not root for him? He's a blue collar guy, and he's just trying to compete. Granted, he's a bad guy. Like, there's no question. He's a bad guy. He does bad things. And but at the same time, when the antagonist of the show, if Oswald is the protagonist, which he is, then the antagonist of the show is the Falcone crime family. It's the Maroney crime family. And so the fact that he's pitting these families against each other so he can kind of step in and rule over the ashes, it's definitely Littlefinger-esque because he's manipulating things behind the shadows. But he's not. He's a likable character. I never liked Littlefinger. He's a douchebag. I hated that guy. But Oswald hasn't taken down any Starks in this show. He's just everyone as bad as Oswald is. Everyone else is worse, and that allows you to just buy into the character. And the other thing too is he has a good sense of humor about everything. He makes you laugh. He's got so when he first meets Victor, and they get in the car, they're just driving, and just 5 seconds ago, Oz was threatening to kill this kid, and then he's asking Victor if he likes his air freshener, and then we get the moment with the Dolly Parton 9 to 5 CD, and when they're eating hamburgers after putting the body in the trunk, and Oswald says something like, "I asked for extra pickles and they give me two." So does the normal amount of pickles mean one? It's just there's something so real about him. And so it's just he's just such a great character. Which it's kind of funny because again, there's that moment in episode 2 where he kills somebody, and it is really kind of a sobering thing because you have been on this guy's side and he's gradually like winning you over, and you want to see him win. You want good things for him, but at the same time you realize, yeah, he's a killer, he's a murderer, he's not a good guy. And so that's kind of that it's walking that line between liking someone but not liking what they do, and kind of just seeing where it goes, and it just makes for some good drama. I think I've talked a lot about why I like Oswald. I think the other big thing is his ability to just kind of talk his way through anything. That's his superpower, which it's valid to talk about superpowers. This is a show that takes part in a quote unquote super universe. This is part of the Batman universe. And even though there's no flashy powers on display, this is a show in which, Oswald Cobb is going to become the Penguin, a supervillain. So he's got to have a superpower, and he does have a superpower. His superpower is his ability to talk his way out of life and death situations. He's super quick on his feet, which seems like a pun because of his physical deformity, but he actually is really quick on his feet. He's able to twist things in the moment in just a split second. It looks like he's screwed, and he's able to turn it back on the other person, put them on their back foot, make it seem like he's what he's doing is in the right, or at least it's not as bad as it looks. And I think in the first two episodes alone, he talks his way out of like four life and death situations where if he says the wrong thing, he's dead because the people he's playing this game with, they don't mess around. They kill people. And it's this crazy high wire act. And how can you not admire someone for just the balls and the gusto to just go for it and just keep doing it. It reminds me a lot of the Netflix show Ozark, where Marty Bird was he's basically an accountant. He's like a super accountant for a Mexican cartel, and he would just move their drug money around. And at some point, the entire series is about basically him trying to get himself and his family out of this cartel business, and that requires do like stealing from the cartel basically. And there's a lot of he does a lot of money laundering. That's like his specialty, is like buying businesses so he can launder money for this cartel. But in the process of doing that, he's trying to get his too so he can get out. And every episode, he's on the edge of getting himself and his family killed because these people don't play, and especially when you're talking about their money. Like they're not messing around with that. And Oz reminds me a lot of that because it is he's able to stay super calm in the most stressful situations, keep his head, talk his way out of it, and it's rather remarkable because again, this guy's nothing to look at, and he's you could say, so he would be disgusting to look at because of just the way his face is. And he's got this, when he smiles, his face like almost becomes like rat like. It's kind of, it's a little disturbing actually, but at the same time, like when he smiles and you see the glint of gold in his teeth, there's just something that just I don't it's just it just gets you. It just gets you. You just I like the guy. I do. It's that's the interesting thing about this show is you like this guy, and he's not a good guy at all. Not at all. I think the I've talked a lot about why I'm on Oswald's side, but the big one of the big things for me, I'm gonna stop talking about Oswald here at some point, but you gotta talk about him a lot because this is his show. But I do want to leave off one more thing on Oswald. I think the moment that got me on his side was the very first scene of the show, which, hey, that's the time to do it, is get everyone on his side right from the beginning. And coming from the Batman, you would remember that this guy was a villain, and he was going up against Batman, and you maybe kind of liked him a little bit because he had a little something. But same time, he's clearly a bad guy. So first scene of episode 1, we find Oswald. He goes into the club that he worked for, that he owned, not he owned, that he worked for the Falcone crime family. He busts into the safe to steal some stuff, and Alberto Falcone arrives, who is Carmine Falcone's son. Carmine died in the Batman movie, spoiler. And Alberto arrives to find Oz emptying out the safe. And again, this is classic Oswald. He's like, "Oh, good, you're here. You saved me a trip because these jewels, these jewels belong to you. These jewels I'm about to stick down in front of my pants, they're yours actually. So here you go." And he manages. Alberto's got a gun on him, and it's really incriminating. Like he's got his hands in the safe, pulling stuff out, but he's able to keep it cool. I'm like, hey, I'm doing this for you before someone else could get this idea and steal it. I came here to get this so I can bring it to you because you're the boss now. And he manages to disarm him and talk Alberto down. Alberto lowers the gun. They start celebrating the fact that Alberto's now boss. So while they're sitting there having their drinks, Oz starts talking about this old time gangster from his neighborhood, and he's talking about essentially he's talking about there's different kinds of power because Alberto is lamenting that he doesn't know if he could be the kind of gangster his father was. And Oswald starts talking about this guy he knew when he was growing up as an illustration of there's more than one way to like rule uh as a gangster, I guess. And he starts talking about this guy he knew, lived in the neighborhood. He didn't act like he was above them. He lived among them. He knew everybody. people could come to him with their problems and he would take care of it. Kind of a very like Vito Corleone kind of gangster, like Don kind of thing, where he would take care of people and people loved him because of that. And when this guy died, the neighborhood threw a parade in his honor, which is crazy. And that just to think about, and that stuck with Oswald and has stuck with him all these years. And he says to Alberto, "Can you imagine that to be remembered like that, to be revered like that?" And Alberto starts laughing at him and just kind of pisses all over Oswald's dream because clearly that's what Oswald wants, and you can understand why. Like this is a guy who's gone through life being looked down at because of the deformity and stuff, and the fact that he has an acquired taste. He's rough around the edges. He seems a little uneducated, blue collar guy, and you can understand that he has not gotten that kind of sense of love or respect in his life, like probably ever. And to see someone else be honored with a parade after they pass away because they're so beloved and so revered, you can understand why that would move Oswald. And you can even think it's not a big step to imagine that that is what led Oswald to this life of crime, that he wanted to be thought of like that. And he wanted to be kind of the gentleman gangster where, yeah, he does some bad stuff, but at the same time, he's taking care of people and he knows people by name and he's beloved because of what he does for these people. So when Alberto mocks him for this dream, it's devastating, and you can see, and this is credit to Colin Farrell with his acting in this entire series. I think he's going to win an Emmy for this because he's absolutely riveting in this performance. But here specifically, you can see everything on his face, the shock, the hurt, the pain of being mocked for this. His face is all reverent, and then it quickly changes to like, no, like you don't understand, to the hurt, the deep hurt that he has this dream, that he shares this dream, and this guy mocks him for it. And it's something that even it stayed in the back of my mind even as I've watched this series because it is such a great first moment for him, this great first scene. And yeah, it's again credit to Colin Farrell because he's killing it in this role. You're getting everything from him. You're getting humor, humanity, pain, anger, fear, and he just completely humanizes Oswald. The way he and it's part of it too, the physicality of him, the way he licks his lips. Again, I mentioned the gold tooth when he smiles. Sometimes you just get the glint of it. The way he moves, it's a very physical performance, and it's almost hard to believe there's actually a smaller actor inside this fat suit because he embodies him so much that this feels like a real person, and it's hats off. I like at least 50% of the reason I love Oswald is because of what Colin Farrell is doing in this performance. Probably more because yeah, the writing is smart and the situations, the plot, everything that's happening to Oswald, it's surprising and interesting. But Colin Farrell is he's killing it in this role, and he's what you're responding to. Really, it's that performance. So a lot of reasons to love Oswald. I think the introduction of the Victor character is another one. Victor's this young kid who Oswald, uh, in episode one, early in episode one, he meets quote unquote meets Victor because Victor and his friends are trying to steal the rims off of Oswald's car. And Oswald, everyone runs off. This kid Victor doesn't run quite as fast, and Oswald gets him. And it looks like he's going to kill him because that's who Oswald is. But he spares him because Victor has this really bad, debilitating stutter, especially when he's stressed. So he could barely talk when Oswald is like, "What are you doing?" And it's pretty clear that Oswald spares him in this moment because he's kind of seeing, in some sense, he's seeing himself in a reflection. Like this kid has this impediment. It's probably challenged him all his life, and Oswald knows what that's like, and so he kind of He doesn't kill him, and that comes up later in the episode that he could kill him, and he chooses not to. He chooses to spare the kid and takes him under his arm, his wing. Would that be too on the nose? Call it his wing. He takes him under his arm. I guess that you call it as take it under his wing. Whatever, forget the pun. Whatever, we're gonna play with the pun. He takes the kid in and he starts mentoring him. They become co-conspirators in this plot to take down these two rival crime families. And on one hand, it feels almost like a Batman and Robin situation where you've got the older, more seasoned person bringing on this kid, teaching him the ropes, and they're doing work together. But at the same time, it's clear that, and we get a real, in episode 2, you get a real uh, wake up call to the fact that even though Oz feels affection for Vic, it only goes to a point. And when Vic lets him down in the second episode, it gets a bit ugly. It's a bit hard to watch because it seemed like these guys might be a new like Mando and Mando and Baby Yoda, where you've got this older kind of very seasoned knows what he's doing guy, and you've got this kind of younger person that doesn't know what they're doing, but they try hard. But at the same time, but it's not, because Oswald, he's very single minded in what he's trying to do, and to his point, you know, Vic could get them both killed if he doesn't fulfill his end of the bargain. They're playing a very dangerous game for very high stakes. So you understand why Oswald comes down on him. But at the same time, I think that this sword is going to be hanging over Vic's head the entire series, because Vic is Vic is going to be where Oswald is vulnerable. You think it's going to be with his mom, but it's actually not his mom. His mom is kind of what's pushed him to where he is today. Where he's vulnerable is going to be Vic. And in fact, I think if I can just speculate on where this show might go, I think Victor has a different role to play, a darker role to play in the story. I don't think it's looking like he's gonna be, the number two, Oswald's lieutenant. And we know that this is an origin story, so we can surmise that by the end of it, Oswald's gonna be the Penguin. Like, that's the point of the show, is to make him become the crime boss of Gotham. And this show is gonna be about how that happens. It's right there in the name. It's the Penguin. Like, he's not the Penguin yet. At some point, one of the Falcone guys calls him Penguin as a mocking moniker because of his waddle. But and can't wait to see Oswald kill that guy. But he's not the Penguin yet. He's not the Penguin that we know from years of Batman lore. This show is about transforming Oswald Cobb, this mid-level gangster, into the Penguin. And I think that transformation can only come through great change and suffering. I think Oswald's going to have to sacrifice something to take that mantle. He's going to have to give something up. You don't get to just walk in. It's not going to be an easy victory. That's not how life goes. That's certainly not how a show like this goes. For drama to really hit, the main character has to give up something to get what they really want. I think Victor's going to be what Oswald has to give up. I think he is going to. I honestly think he's going to end up having to kill Victor, and that's going to complete his transformation. That's going to actually make him. That's going to sunder our affection for Oswald as he then becomes the Penguin, and they're going to be two different characters at that point. That's kind of what I think. I do think that he's in a. I don't think Victor's long for this world. I hate to say it, because I think that they have a cool dynamic, and I think a lot of Oswald's humor comes from his interactions with Victor, but I just don't think that. I think he's gonna have to sacrifice him to become kind of the capital V villain that the Penguin is. I think that's what's gonna happen. Speculation, but hey, you heard it here. You heard it here first. There is one other character on the show that merits mention. Sofia Falcone. She's she's a crazy woman. It sounds sexist to say that, but in this case, she really is crazy. And what else do you call someone who eats salad with their bare hands? Like, she's cracked. She's a serial killer, I think, of women. There was just something in one of I think episode 2 maybe, that indicated that she killed a lot of women. Don't know exactly why, and there's obviously lots of lore and stuff. I don't know the lore, and frankly, I don't care about the lore because I'm just taking the show for what it is, and I think it's best as something that exists outside of the lore personally. But it's implied that Oz had something to do with putting her away. It seemed like he was the one who went to Carmine Falcone, who is Sofia's dad, and maybe was like pointing out that, hey, your girl is going around killing people. She crazy. Like, we kill people, but she's doing some crazy stuff. And they got her put away in Arkham Asylum for crazy people. So she's out now, and technically she's rehabilitated, but she's kind of like a doll, like a glass doll that's been broken and glued back together. And you can see the seams, and it looks like she's very fragile. And her only hope for sanity, it seemed like, was her brother Alberto, who's now dead. So she's, if she's holding on to anything, it's by the barest of threads. And it seems like at any moment she's gonna blow. She's volatile. For everything Oswald is, he's cool and collected and is in control of his faculties. Sofia is the opposite of that in every way, which makes her an interesting nemesis because she's so unpredictable. And I think it would have been easy for the show to just make her this crazy chick, this kind of force of nature, almost like a almost this is not this is an imperfect analogy, but almost like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, where the Joker is just a force of nature in that movie. You can't understand him, you can't reason with him. He just affects the story. It would be easy to make Sophia like that in this show, but this show is too smart for that. They actually take the time to humanize her. In the second episode, we get to see the world through her eyes, and it's an uncomfortable place to be. It's clear that she's ostracized, and you can understand that to some degree because she's a serial killer. I don't imagine serial killers get many dinner invitations. In real life, if I was at a funeral or something and there was a serial killer there, I would be avoiding them too. I would be giving them the side eye, the stink eye. I would be whispering under my breath and inching towards the door. Like, that's what you do. But seeing it from her perspective, it does make you feel a little bit about little different about it, and you feel a little bit of empathy for her because her brother's dead. He was her last family member basically that she loved, and her maybe her only hope for the future. Her and her brother had plans about what they wanted to do, and that gave her something to look forward to while she was in Arkham. And now that she's out, that's gone. And what is she without her brother? And with this plan, what does her life look like? The show is making some interesting statements about kind of nature and nurture. When we meet Oswald's mom, we get a glimpse of how he came to be. Like, there's just, it's a great moment because he's like, Oswald's trying to hustle his mom out of her home. He's kept her in hiding basically so that she would be safe from his life, from his choices. So he comes to get her and is like, we need to get out of town. We're gonna go on a trip, and is hiding the truth from her about why they need to go. But she puts it together. Oswald confesses that he killed Alberto, and it seems like she's gonna be like, as any normal parent would be like, what do you mean you killed someone? Or are you crazy? Or like, yeah, let's get the bags, we got to go because that guy, he's dangerous, and his family is they rule Gotham, and we're all gonna die. But no, she says, she pushes back on him and challenges him and is like, well, yeah, I'm sure you had your reasons. Like, she says, my boys, are you gonna be a pussy boy? Are you gonna run? Or are you gonna take what's yours? And you did this on purpose. This was not an accident. Like, this is your next step onto greatness. And you can see that she's been saying stuff to him like this his whole life. I That's the implication. She's been kind of pushing him to do more, be more, and be as bad as you want to be to some degree because she sees greatness in him. Meanwhile, with Sophia, you get the sense that her family has also played a role in her development, but to a different degree, where Oswald is being pushed, Sophia's being held back. You kind of wonder, like, what does it mean for a young girl to be raised among killers? Is that how she becomes a serial killer? Is it a was she trying to I don't know, trying to get daddy's attention or make daddy proud or something. Because it's the one thing that's very clear is that the Falcones are, uh, you call them misogynistic. There's no women at the table. There's no women running this organization. The women are on the sides. The women are the mothers, the wives. They don't have a say, even if her last name is Falcone. She has no seat at the table. She has no role to play. And it's clear the family wants nothing to do with her. They want her out of the picture. Is it because she's a serial killer? Is it because she's got a few screws loose? Or is it because she's a woman? I think it's probably all three things. Now, what's really interesting is that the rival Maroney family are Sal Maroney's in prison. The Falcones had something to do with that, but their family is run by Sal's wife while he's in jail. And it's just kind of interesting that the Falcones are, strictly male-driven, male-run organization. The Maronis, the woman is the head of the family, and she's as tough as any of the rest of them. Frankly, she terrifies me more than any of the guys in the Falcone organization. Maybe Sofia would have been better off being born in that family. I think she probably would have been, but I do think I am interested to see as the show progresses what role and what statements it makes about family and nature versus nurture and all that kinds of stuff, because I think that it's kind of what it's hinting at to some degree, and specifically when it comes to, I mean, rather obvious when it comes to Oswald, but I think with Sofia, if you look, you can see between the lines and kind of make some connections. I could be, just guessing here. The other thing about Sofia is, where's her mom? They make reference to her mom at one point, and I think there's a family video of her and her brother when they're young in episode 2, and I think there's a woman's voice, and I think that was her mom. I assume that was her mom. But what happened to the mom? Don't know. Did that have anything to do with the fact that she becomes a serial killer of women specifically? Don't know. Again, it's probably answered by some comic books. Don't care, because that's not relevant. It's not pertinent. This show is its own thing, and it's freaking wonderful. Just a couple of other quick things I wanted to point out, things I noticed from these first couple episodes. This one kind of cracked me up. So, Shades from Luke Cage, the actor has a name. I don't care. Like, he popped up in Emily the Criminal too. This guy's always gonna be Shades to me because he just, yeah, he wore sunglasses all the time. His character's name was Shades on Luke Cage, and he just kind of exudes kind of just a cool vibe. He just seems like he's a cool guy. So anyway, he pops up in this series as Sofia's psychiatrist, and which kind of made me laugh a little bit because it's like he has a kink for powerful but crazy women, because in Luke Cage he also he shacked up with a powerful but crazy chick. It took me to the second episode to notice this, but Tootie from Facts of Life is in the show. She's got like gray hair, but she's playing Oswald's like girlfriend slash kind of be like a female pimp of some kind. I don't know if she's running girls or she just has girls, but she's doing something with that. And she seems to be like I don't know if it's Oswald's girlfriend or like friend with benefit, but they have a relationship, and it's actually a nice relationship. I hope she sticks around. I hope she doesn't die. I have a feeling that when Sofia figures out what's going on, she could be in trouble because Oswald does name drop her at one point. It also took me to the second episode to realize that Oswald's apartment is inside an old bank. So his bed, and in fact, his bedroom is inside the vault, which has got to be one of the all-time flexes, like a villain. It's specifically in the second episode. You see all the walls are just covered with security boxes, which just is a cool aesthetic and it looks cool. But also, as a guy who's got secrets and secrets, it's kind of cool that he's got, he can put stuff in lock boxes and lock them up, and you just kind of, just looking at that, you just get the sense that, yeah, he's got all kinds of stuff like stashed away. But the other cool thing was the fact that his bedroom doors are actually like vault doors. Like, that's pretty cool. I mean, come on. And then the last thing I did notice, I mentioned this already. The word penguin, we hear it dropped in the beginning of episode 2. The head Falcone guy, I think his name is Johnny. He's not. I don't think he's actually a Falcone, but maybe he's a cousin or something. I don't know. He called Oswald Penguin. He means it as an insult. And again, it's interesting because that's the first time we hear the name Penguin on the show, and it is. I actually kind of liked it because it indicates that they've Oswald's been called this before. He's probably been carrying this nickname Penguin for a while, and it's obviously it's an insult. And I do think it's cool though because he's gonna own that at some point here. He's gonna become the Penguin. He's gonna own everything that means. And I do like that. One of the coolest things about this show is the Penguin as a character. Historically, very jokey. You can think about the Batman TV series from the '60s. Like that's a pretty bad rendition of the this character. He literally quacks, and he's got his umbrella fetish and all this stuff. And but even in the '90s, we had in Batman Returns, you had Danny DeVito playing the character, and it was a more tragic rendition of the character, but it's still very tropey and campy. And at the time, yeah, it's still a good movie, but at the same time, what I love about this show is it feels so very real. When you talk about superhero movies, superhero TV shows, reality is usually not something you talk about because these are people who have abilities that break the laws of physics and reality and everything else. So, on one hand, reality doesn't have a seat at the table in these movies, these shows, these properties. But I find, and maybe this is a reaction to all the years we've had of Marvel and the fact that Marvel is taking a down. Marvel is on the down slope at this point, and it's no longer as good as it was. And DC never really arrived with their universe. So for me, I'm just really enjoying this more realistic take on it. The fact that it does feel like a Gotham version of The Sopranos. I love it. I really do. It's really good drama. And if you like drama, if you like good acting, if you like powerful storytelling, if you like tense moments where you're like, holy crap, how are they getting out of this? Like this show has everything. It's funny. Like I like to say it's the best show on TV. And I say that kind of flippantly because there's too much TV. Like who can possibly say that what is the best and what is the worst because no one can see everything anymore. This is certainly the best show I've watched all year, and I've watched quite a few good ones, and I'm super excited to see where it goes. So if you haven't yet watched The Penguin, I would encourage you to take the time to do so because it's easily worth subscribing for HBO for a month to watch it. So there's going to be 8 episodes, so wait until the 5th episode is out or something. Pick up HBO for a month for $15. Watch the show. It's amazing. And while you have it, you can watch Deadwood, which I also love, and there's all kinds of other stuff out there. But yeah, The Penguin, love it. Great show. Highly recommend. I think that's going to be it for this episode. I can't believe we went over 40 minutes with me just blabbing about this show. Considering I've only seen 2 episodes and I've written about the show a few times, I thought I'd run out of things to say, but turns out when you love something, it's rather easy to just kind of keep talking about it. So that's going to be it for this week's episode. Check out the website, allthefanfare.com, and you can head over to newsletter.allthefanfare.com. You can find where this episode is posted. You can leave comments on the episode, and I respond to all comments. If you like this, leave a review, leave a rating, your podcast app of choice. And until next time, peace out.